Hi everyone, welcome back to Data C. Today we have Reddy with us. He goes by the name Reddy, but his full name is Pravarshi Reddy, I believe so.
Yep, you got it.
And Pravarshi, over to you. Maybe just a quick introduction, then we'll begin formally with a few of the questions.
Yeah, for sure. Hey everyone. My name is Pravarshi Reddy. I go by Reddy because it's shorter and internationally easier to pronounce. Been in the data science industry for a couple of years now. Done a lot of projects. Currently, focused on a lot of cool and fun things. Some generative AI related, some not. But yeah, that's just my story. Happy to be here.
Yep. Did you start with consulting or you had a different background?
So I've kind of worked a little bit both in the US and in India.
Okay.
During my stint in the US, I worked more kind of like as a core technical team, as part of a mortgage company, and a little bit in a marketing firm. And then I came over to India, and then once I came over to India, I got an opportunity to work in consulting. Been in consulting ever since. So yeah,
So how long has it been into consulting?
about 6 years now. Yeah, so it's been a ride.
So probably before ChatGPT era.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I was like boots on ground when ChatGPT hit and the whole world dynamically changed overnight.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
so was it for real? Like there was a disruption in the market after ChatGPT, especially into like, for example, consulting.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing the disruption even today, right? You just read the news and,
Yes.
there is a very real and, shall we say, existential threat to what generative AI can do and how it's reshaping the system. And
Yeah.
more than just like the concerns around how it's reshaping the system, the speed at which it's reshaping the system, right? Like even when the internet came out, it took a little bit of time for the internet to like kind of normalize in households. Like before the internet, like it was like it was crazy. Like you had a computer in your own home. It's like, what is
Yeah.
that? Like you have these computer salesmen running around and they're like, I don't need a big box that consumes electricity and raises my bill and causes all these issues. And but with generative AI, right, like it had the perfect launch platform. So it's basically started off like not from ground zero, but it's kind of had a good foundation off of which it was able to like kind of ramp off. And it's been like rapidly being adopted, rapidly changing the way we do things. And yeah, it's like very really reshaping the future as we know it.
Right. I was checking out your LinkedIn and I realized that you were more into kind of time series prediction modeling or maybe a statistical modeling earlier.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah. So
So,
like, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So the question was like, I'm sure now that you're working into more of a, I would say, Gen AI solution kind of thing. What change are you observing in type of maybe technologies that you use generally in day-to-day life?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, right off the bat, and I think, industry-wise, this has kind of become an expectation that you have to use AI while coding. Like,
Yep.
we are kind of witnessing the death of Stack Overflow. And that's like,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. I mean, you can look at the metrics, but it's like, yeah, I mean,
yes.
I was there, I was coding before Gen AI came out, and Stack Overflow is your best friend at that point of time.
Okay.
Plop a question there, keep doing research, pray to God someone answers, and you fix the problem. But now it's like I think it's kind of made everything that we struggled with. It's elevated everyone. I think I read an article that said now everyone can reach a medium level of skill in anything, right? So initially you start as a novice, then you become a beginner, then you have like mid-level skills, then you're an expert.
Right.
But now you jump straight from like a novice straight to like a mid-level person at minimum, right? And if you know what you're doing, if you're already at the mid-level, now you can like, okay, all these dreams and thoughts and ideas that you had, it just kind of paves the way much faster.
Right.
Yeah. And I think on the flip side is now that everybody has access to these tools and everything is like so fast and like so easy to do, it's kind of become this thing where now there's a lot more things to check. There's like, there's always going to be PRs and there's always going to be
Yep.
like things to review and stuff like that, right? So that has
Right.
gotten like more difficult now because now that things are moving really quickly, systems shape up like much faster. And when you have these complex systems that require like a lot of connections, you have to be a little more mindful and you have to kind of balance like being careful and being quick at the same time. So yeah, so
So,
broadly,
do you really see the usage of those ML models right now? I mean, do you see clients using those ML models, statistical models to be specific these days?
yeah, I mean, everything still, so basically LLMs and generative AI, right? They have a different usage. And these statistical models, everything, they're meant for a different usage.
Right.
There is a lot of confusion of trying to club these two concepts together or say that, oh, this is better or this is better. But I think the differentiator is that you have to kind of look at them as two separate entities altogether, right?
Right.
And once you kind of look at these two as two separate entities, I feel like at that point, that's when, what you're looking for will kind of come to fruition. Because again, look, at the end of the day, LLMs, statistical models, forecasting, prediction, classification, all of these are just tools, right?
Right.
We are taking these tools and then we're taking the data from companies and we are trying to provide value, right? Like essence of data science is basically that. We're just trying to
Right.
generate some value. So I feel like, we get so deep into like, oh, am I using the right model, or am I using the right LLM? It's not that, right? Like at the end of the day, is your solution, creating that value for the client? Is it like really, for the person you're trying to solve a problem for? Is it like really
Right.
providing you that value? So yeah.
But I believe after ChatGPT came, there must be some change in the expectation of clients as well. Maybe
Yeah.
irrespective of the company or project you're working on, but generally, when you're serving AI solution to a client, they must have some high expectation that they are using AI. How do they actually show that value in terms of AI?
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
So I think at this point, everyone is like, I think, so I'll just kind of go back historically, right? 2022 is when December ChatGPT dropped.
Yeah.
Like they started gaining users like left, right, and center overnight.
Yes.
Like users just started just like piling on and it started getting wild. 2023 was like kind of the wild, wild west of like generative AI, like that
LLMs. Yep.
was, you have like people building entire software architectures and frameworks overnight. And then I started my journey in earnest around 2024. And
Okay.
I started with a Udemy course. And then I started that course and then I was reviewing the materials and I was reviewing the documentation on the side. And I was like, wait a minute, these two are different now. So the point where the guy made the course to the point, and that was not like a lot of time, right? It was like 2-3 months. And you think like, what could change in 2-3 months? A lot, apparently, like fundamentally everything. So
Yep.
2023, 2024 was like not a good point, I would say, to land into generative AI. And I think it's gotten a lot better though. 2025, 2026 has been like, now it's like we're entering the golden age. Everything is more or less
Right.
stable. Like the changes that you find will not be as, like it's not like you'll start a course and everything is different. It'll start a course and like a few components are outdated and a few are still relevant to your problem. Um, so yeah, so what I would say to that, like, just to get back to your question on like how have things
Yep.
changed, we don't have like a lot of historical data to compare against, right?
Right.
If you say that, what are the expectations now that we have generative AI, we don't know what that kind of increased efficiency looks like, right? Because, as we kind of went through the Wild West phase of generative AI where everyone was using it, it kind of got normalized before people could actually start like really, really understanding what are we tracking and what are we looking at,
Yep.
right? So now what has happened is, now that we've come to this point, I feel like now the industry, the expectation from everyone, right? Like be it software engineers, data science, that's rapidly going to evolve overnight.
Yep.
What I personally, this is my personal opinion, what I foresee will happening is like you'll have fewer people doing like handling 3 times the workload.
Go back to the question.
Sure.
Where were
We were talking about, I think, how will things change, right? And I just kind of,
I mean, more of how client expectations change
yeah,
these days in
right.
terms of AI use cases.
Right. So, as I mentioned, right, basically, I think what's going to happen is we are going to see a shift where it's going to be fewer people like managing like larger systems. This could go like, again, this is just a personal opinion, but this could go one of two ways, right? One way is it'll lead to hyper personalization, right?
Right.
Meaning, like, let's say now you run a marketing campaign for X number of customers, right? The future will look like you have these number of customer segments, and you're going to send super targeted like marketing emails. And
Right.
to actually be able to create that hyper personalization, right? What's going to happen is everybody has to start really, really coming up with their own solutions, right? In the sense that instead of one guy managing one customer segment, it's going to be like one guy managing a tiny fraction of that customer segment, another guy managing another fraction of that customer segment, and the last guy managing the third part of that customer segment.
Right.
It could just be like you'll have one person managing everything. Like they create the
You know,
system that,
yes.
like,
Yeah, I was talking about the company earlier. So, have you heard about this company called as Obsidian?
Obsidian, no, have not.
So, I think they recently maybe reached some 300 million valuation or something, and they just have 4 engineers right now.
Yeah, that's
So
that's normal.
on the board.
That's the new normal. Like if you're able to pull that off, like that's like not surprising to me. I mean, 300 million, I'm assuming, right? With
Yes.
4 engineers, yeah, that's definitely not a shock to me. And especially, I think the fact that they're starting from ground zero, right?
Yep.
They are coming in with the mentality that, oh, we have an LLM. and we know how to code with this. They are not tied into their, oh, I've been delivering like this for 5, 10 years. Now I need to
Yeah.
change. There's no baggage like that. It's just we come in, we redefine the way. And I think that's why you see that much confidence there.
Do you work on Windows or Mac?
I'm more of a Windows user. Yeah.
Okay. Have you worked on Mac before?
No, never.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I asked this question because I was trying out some AI products now, and they are specifically releasing it for Mac
Oh,
instead of Windows, just because I think accessibility is easier in Mac as compared to Windows, at least from agent perspective.
yeah. I mean, to each his own is what I would say. Like, I mean, in the future, if I have to work on a Mac, happy to work on a Mac. If I need to work on Windows, happy to work on Windows.
What AI tools do you use these days, except ChatGPT and Claude? That's it.
Yeah, mostly, to be honest, I'm primarily using ChatGPT and Claude. Getting
Okay.
dabbling into a little bit of GitHub Copilot. Definitely seeing that it's like really we just got to get tuned to the mechanics of it more than anything else. But yeah, sadly, I'll just be honest, like, been heavily deep into ChatGPT. I think I looked at my metrics
Yes.
at 2025 and they're like, you're the 1% of users. I'm like, oh,
I was
okay.
also one of them.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So yeah, but I think that's fine. You don't have to know like every single tool and every single thing. Like, you'll be able to judge
Right.
better once you dig deep into like one initial solution. Yeah.
No, the reason I asked this question is because I'm thinking more of an adoption point of view. So right now we have 2 to 3 major AI tools,
Yeah.
but there are hundreds of them in the market for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
But I rarely find the people who use these tools. So let's say if I neglect or remove ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini from the list, there are very few tools in the market that people generally use. So I was trying, kind of curious to know, do we have the people who use tools anything other than these three?
Uh,
Especially if you think from, let's say, consumer point of view.
right.
So do you use any AI tool that helps you in your day-to-day life or anything as such?
Uh, yeah, I mean, you raise a good point. And to be honest, I think a majority of the population, if you look outside of like, the major players, right? Gemini,
Yep.
Claude, ChatGPT, Grok to some extent, I would say, still
Yes.
holding relevance. But yeah, I mean, again, we gotta kind of realize it. It's still not, we're not really in the early stages of generative AI yet. It's basically, I think we're kind of at an inflection point where we're kind of like it's a identity crisis, right? Before, software
Yep.
engineers used to be these like cool guys who can like sit and type at like 300 500 words a minute or something like that, and that's how they used to code. But now that like ChatGPT can do that in like like could finish the entire, like literally an entire segment of the architecture in a matter of minutes if defined correctly,
Right.
right? So
Right.
now I think it's a bit of an identity crisis where it's like, what does it mean to be a programmer? What does it even mean to code anymore? So that even comes down to like, what is an application anymore? Like, do I
Yes.
have to press a button? Why do I need to press a button anymore? Right? Because it's almost akin to like, not I'm not going to say sentient living being, but it's kind of akin to like human level intelligence already living in the application, right? So even the concept of us guiding through the application to actually get stuff done, like that paradigm even might be questioned in the future. You don't know. So yeah, so I would say like, yeah, right now we're still dealing with our identity crisis. So we have to like, it's like exploration. What's going to happen in the future? No one can really tell at this point. So yeah, all we know is that LLMs are here. They're not going to go away. And whatever happens, like they're integrated into our tool set. If you're a data science in 2026 and you don't use LLMs, or you don't even know about LLMs, like you got to like upskill really, really fast, because that's like
Right.
just not acceptable anymore.
On that note, do you code these days?
Yeah, not traditionally. Like traditional style of coding, absolutely not. Through LLM coding,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, it's I think I'm more aligned with now. My role is not like just a raw software engineer. It's more of system designer, architect,
System
planner.
design.
Yeah, so I think everyone's pretty much elevated to that point, right? Like that's the way we all have to function now because we're kind of in that tipping point where like one person has to do more. And yeah, so we're just kind of exploring that. But I think pretty soon, we're seeing like all of these layoffs and stuff. So the scary thought is if you don't get with the program, then
Yes.
it's gonna be like, yeah, like I don't think companies would be okay with whatever we're producing the way
Correct.
we've been producing it for the last X number of years. Yeah.
Maybe on that note, let's go back to our agenda. So what we are planning to do today is let's take one example of any random project. Maybe it could be a dummy use case,
Yeah.
but I want to learn more about how does an end-to-end journey of a product look like when it comes to building an AI solution, with respect to tools that it involves, with respect to processes that it goes through. So maybe let's pick one use case. You can pick any one. and then we'll go step by step. How does a product journey look like when it comes from development till production? What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good. Let me just, kind of like get rid of the boring stuff and just ask ChatGPT, give me,
ChatGPT.
yeah.
Especially what I would maybe require from your end is something that you have seen in your experience, and that should maybe revolve around maybe tools that you have used in the past. It could be experiences that you had in the past, maybe sometimes with the client. So you do not have to name anyone, but it is just that something that should come from you.
Um,
Let's say I am a client and
hmm.
I'm asking for an AI solution, and I have a platform where I write blogs, for example. And
Sorry,
now
you
I
right?
want to
Sorry, could you repeat that?
blogs, tech blogs. I
Okay.
write technical blogs,
Oh,
and
blocks.
let's say
Okay, got it, got it. Okay. Mhm.
now I'm asking you to build me a platform to automate this entire journey.
Got it. Okay,
Let's say
perfect.
this
Yeah,
is one of
that's
the
a good
use
use
case,
case. Okay, perfect.
right?
Okay.
But now imagine that I'm not a client. I'm a big enterprise,
Yeah, of course. No,
right?
no, that's fine. I hear
Right.
you. I get it. I get the exercise. Okay.
Yep. So
So
how will we go about it?
okay. So first thing that you have to do, right? And this is like, the textbooks will probably tell you something different, but this is the way I like to go about things, is kind of
Yep.
begin with the end in mind, right? It's not a new concept, like hundreds of people have been saying it. Try to have like a vision in mind of what the end would look like and then kind of work backwards from there, right?
Okay.
That is one piece of it, but I think the more important piece is, okay, so you're saying you want a system that automates this pipeline of
Yes.
you creating technical content, right? Like, but why? What is like, what do you want to achieve out of it, right? Like, let's say I'm like a data science genie. I wave my, I do my thing, and whatever you wish for will come true tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So what have you achieved with that? Like, let's say 1 month from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, we've built out this system. How has it transformed your business? I think the better that you can articulate that for me, right, as a data scientist, the better I can help you by kind of bridging that gap between your vision and reality. So
Okay.
that is like the place where I would start. So I mean, doesn't have to. We're just talking like a dummy use case here, but like, just give me your perspective. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So let's say if I am building a platform, so I would expect increase in productivity and
Hmm.
a kind of automation where I don't have to reach my users manually.
Got it.
Plus, there's a flow that I follow while
Hmm.
writing some content, and it's kind of a repetitive flow. So let's say I have a topic in my mind, I research about it, I draft a let's say blog, then I kind of ask AI to review it,
Hmm.
and then based on that, maybe fix grammatical mistakes, and I kind of do it for every blog, let's say 4 to 5 blogs a month. So if I automated this task today, I know of one thing for sure that I will save at least maybe 10, uh, at least let's say 2 hours a day from my life, and I can dedicate this time to a better task. Okay, so instead of me writing these things and reaching out to users, publishing, doing those manual stuff, maybe I can automate all this and save 2 hours of my daily life. So this is one of let's say metric that I would measure
Got it.
and a change that I expect.
Makes perfect sense,
But
right? Yeah. Go ahead.
do you think any other good metric or any other good use cases there?
So I think operationally, right? Operation from an operation standpoint, you nailed it. So you want to save time, you want to continue engaging with your audience in a more structured, efficient way. All of
Yep.
that is good, right? But I would maybe go one layer deeper and ask you, let's say that the system, like I said, right? Like, system's built, like, okay, it's working, and
Right.
everything is going well, right? Let's
Okay.
maybe you're saving your days, your blogs are kind of rolling out on time. Um, let's assume a few scenarios, right? Let's assume
Okay.
that it's working great. Your viewership is skyrocketing, and everything is, you like the system now.
Yeah.
So how would we define that, right? Like, how do we define what good looks like to you? Like, would it be I'm getting more audience engagement? Am I getting more people, just responding and talking on my blogs? There's different layers to it, right? So
Right.
we have kind of a general direction, but we need to kind of like, how shall we say, detail out the path to it, so to speak.
Okay.
So what would be like, what does the definition of good look like? So when you think about this, right, let's say we're a year from now, everything is working great, and you're like, already, this is like wonderful. This is exactly what I needed. What inspires you to say that, right? That I feel would be like, that kind of will define everything for, the everything that comes before that for the entire year,
Right.
right? So that's the place I feel like all data science products should start, right? Like, that's the point. And to be quite honest with you, after that, everything else an LLM can do literally better than like 90% of the people.
Right.
Like, when I say people, I mean like a human operator, like an LLM would perform better than 90% of them. Only the last 10% would have very, very niche expertise, very, very latest knowledge, and new kind of creative ways to do things.
Right.
That is like literally the core of data science. And if you look back, right, they've always said this throughout history, throughout my time when I was an intern all the way till now, always start with defining the problem. They start with
Right.
defining the problem and, but they never elaborated on it. And I would say like what the exercise that we went through, right? Like that's just
Right.
like a 10-minute conversation, but this could take like weeks or months, but like that's the foundation of everything. The better you nail that down, the easier it is going to be for like really rolling out like the solution or product that you are looking for. So
So that means not just defining a problem statement or maybe system requirement, it should also revolve around what outcome do we expect in maybe
exactly,
6 months or
nailed
12
it.
months from now.
Exactly, you got it. And I keep saying, right, it's not about outputs. Anyone can produce. I can make 10,000 lines of code by the end of the week. But what is it changing?
In
Who's
fact,
it?
within a day to day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, like I really, really focus down, say like, I'm just gonna like inflate this thing very easily. So
Yes.
100%. So you nailed it. So that's exactly it, right? Like you
So
focus on
is
code.
this a reason that because I've seen a few of my projects in the past, and we used to have like 2 to 3 hours of 2 to 3 months of requirement
Yeah,
gathering only.
right, 100%.
So
And that's absolutely critical. Like, yeah, 100%. Yeah,
so this is like a first step of any enterprise big project where we spend maybe weeks, months in just understanding the problem,
right,
defining the scope, maybe defining the outcomes that we expect maybe 1, 3, or 6 or 12 months from now.
right.
So this is the first part.
Yeah,
Now let's say we have defined that.
yeah.
What's going to happen next?
Yeah, then it's pretty much you just kind of you have like all of the outcomes that you're looking for, right? Then you kind of start thinking about, okay, if like let's maybe start mapping out this this output, right? Like
Yeah.
what are the components needed for it? First of all, like let's think of some like rough flow, right? Like you mentioned, it takes weeks to months. So you start off with like a
Yes.
base flow. Okay, I'm just gonna like define a path. And then you go to the client, you say, hey, this is my thought. What are your thoughts on it? This is how it will look like when we kind of
Right.
actually like build it out, and they say, yeah, that sounds good, or they come back and say, I don't really feel it, and you do that back and forth, and then you refine like all the workflows. Once you have like, and when I say workflows, right, your data is like, see, for your use case, it's starting at a certain point. You have certain
Right.
criteria for what your content should be like. You have an idea of like your audience, your how much you want to like engage with them. All of these like high level metrics have been figured out. We figured out how we're going to monitor the outcomes.
Right.
Now it's kind of more, now we start thinking about the journey to get there, right? Again, we're not talking about roles. We're not talking about like, okay, we're going to get like a data analyst and a data engineer. That'll come, but still not yet, right?
Okay.
Now we kind of start bridging, forming the gap a little better, right? Like now we have a technical idea and we have a vision. Now we have to kind of merge those two concepts together and form like the solution, right?
Okay.
So once you kind of have like a clean set of workflows defined, like from your input to your output, all monitoring for your output, then you start, then you get like your technical architect, right? Then you show them like, hey,
Right.
this is what we're trying to build, and then your technical architect would be the person in charge of everything. And once they see the whole picture, right, then
Right.
they will start to know what you need, right? Do you need an EC2 instance, or do you need like EMR, or my cloud knowledge is not like up to par yet. I'm working on it, but like yeah,
Yeah.
this is a general example, right? What is the right service to use? What is the right tool to use? That's where your enterprise, your core software engineer would be coming in. It could be a principal architect, titles and all that, however, like
Yep.
everyone calls them different, but think of this as the one person who would kind of own end to end everything and would be responsible for kind of bringing on like the senior managers to like really articulate like, hey, this is what you're building. Like we're building a spaceship. This is the component you're building. This is what you need to build, right? So yeah, I mean that
but
would
but
be,
let's
yeah,
let's say if I have let's say we brought a technical architect and he designed a own solution, but somehow in between we thought that maybe we needed a change.
yeah.
uh, is it possible, and if so, then how does that change happen?
So that's a big red flag, right? Because if there's a change in the middle, and every good, like this is a common problem in the industry, right? Like once you define your requirements
Yeah.
will change and evolve based on outputs, 100%. But it's the
Yes.
degree to which they change, right? If it's like a small, hey, 2 or 3% change, easily manageable, right? Your architect knows everything. He hears this problem, and you're the folks on the ground actually building this thing. They'll have their own
Right.
ideas and solution to kind of build it out as well. Just gain an alignment across all streams, and you should be good to go. So it's not hard, but now think of it as like, oh, we have to redefine entire workflow. Now we have to
Right.
pause and be like, okay, we messed up requirements gathering, right? And at that point, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of like difficult conversations and decisions that need to take place. And yeah, but yeah, I
Uh,
mean, it is what it is.
have you had any such conversation in the past?
Uh, Hey, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
No, no, I will say I can't disclose that. So I'm just, yeah, I
This is
just like,
irrespective of
yeah,
the company. It is just that
yeah.
maybe if you had a weird client conversation regarding this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will just, plead the fifth, choose to like, plead
Okay.
the fifth.
Now let's say a technical architect has designed something, and how do we generally scope the duration? For example, for this use case, what do you think is the duration for this? I mean, how do we plan this?
You gotta let your pods and everyone decide that, right? So, like at the end of the day, once you get in the people actually building the stuff, you're gonna have like certain hierarchy set, certain like plans laid out.
Right.
And usually, consulting's never that clean, right? Like you don't have like just
Yes.
getting people onboarded into projects. Also, sometimes happens overnight. Sometimes takes a couple of days to a week or two. So it's never that smooth transition in, but you should have kind of a general idea of how long, like you have to agree with the client, right? Like, see, the client can't wait forever for you to come up with like the solution, but at the same time, you can't like, create an unhealthy work environment for your folks just because,
Right.
we want it done like tomorrow. So you kind of have to, again, just start off with the baseline, say, hey, this is what I think. What do you think? Right. And then you just kind of work back and forth. A lot of this is just like back and forth communication, negotiation. That's like the biggest
Do
part.
you think that with the AI and LLMs coming in, the hierarchy in consulting can be changed?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Because,
Do you
right.
see it changing?
Um, I would, I am like, I am just a part of the organization. I don't have like full visibility into every nitty-gritty aspect of it.
Right.
Again, this is just my personal take and my opinion. As we start moving into like the future, right? As people start getting more comfortable with AI, how to code with AI, how to develop with AI, best practices, and all that good stuff.
Right.
Responsibility is going to be more concentrated, I would say. Like you'll have a much larger. The expectation becomes you got to own these like whereas before if you had an entire workflow and you had let's say a team building this workflow, you would be sole responsible for handling this workflow end to end. Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like that shift will happen soon, could happen the next couple of months, could happen like a year or two from now, but it's just going to depend on like just, a lot of different factors. So for now, I would say, yeah, nobody can really say or tell how the future is going to change. It's just like not enough data because we are like, this is a once in a lifetime change that we're going through. So it's actually
Yeah.
a pretty exciting time we're living in because we got to live
Yes.
through the internet age. We got to live through generative AI coming up, rise of cloud, not as big, but like definitely a game changer in how we think, how we elevate software. So yeah, I mean, just, I would say like, can't tell, like, don't know, not enough data. Just have
So
to wait and see.
unpredictable marketing. Okay. Talking about AI specifically, do you follow any AI news or any AI blogs as such to stay updated?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've just kind of given up. It's like just so much. Every day there's a new thing and a new update and all
Yeah.
that good stuff. So my thoughts outside of work have primarily been like, all right, I'd like to start building just something, like just I think the best way to learn is always to build. Just
Right.
go out there and just start building stuff. And I think more than any blog, any like article you read, any Udemy course that you take, any kind of certification you get,
Yeah.
there is no higher form of credential than actually showing a working product. Doesn't have to be a good product, doesn't have to add any real world value, but the fact that you got it working without like any strict instruction or direction from someone also just speaks to your skill set, right? You're able to say
Right.
that I'm able to use my skills and techniques to actually build something out of nothing, right? And that shows a lot of initiative, a lot of like general understanding of the code and the tools and all that fun stuff, a lot of good
Right.
base foundations. I mean, what is the point of interviews, right? Just check if you are able to do all that. So if you show me a working product in your interview, I mean, like, why would I not immediately be like, yeah, of course I'm going to take this guy.
Maybe I have a follow up question.
Yeah,
Let's say you are interviewing someone
yeah,
today with two different level of experience. So
yeah,
someone
sure.
who is a fresher and someone, let's say, who comes up with a 3 years of experience
Yeah.
in the industry.
Mhm.
How would you judge both of these candidates?
Good question, right? For a fresher, right? Again, like if you really like if you find yourself fortunate enough to like be with me for an interview or like I'm interviewing you for a role, the
Yep.
easiest way to like get my buy-in is you just show me a demo. I found that having like I mean like I've built an interview system back in like 2023 where I have like this template and format, but then now with LLMs, right?
Yep.
Like I mean, look, I'm not gonna like make you share your screen and like, okay, show me you're not using ChatGPT because at the end of the day, I expect you to use it once you join my team.
Exactly.
So the way I would like two ways, right? For a fresher, if they're able to show me even even a mildly impressive demo, something very basic, like upload Excel file, run algorithm, give outputs, that's the baseline, right? If they
Right.
can do that much, okay, I'm a little comfortable, then I can say, yeah, we can work with this, and we got to grow you, right? Because see, there's certain things you expect from an analyst or a fresher, certain things you expect from a 3-year person.
Right.
Now, coming to someone with 3 years of experience, right?
Right.
And what I would say is I would look for adaptability, right?
Okay.
Because the biggest thing that has changed in the last 3 years is how we do things, and it's changing every day. How we do things is being redefined every second.
Yeah.
We are redefining, like, right from like the basic stuff all the way to the high level complex stuff. So I would look at, like, okay, tell me about a project you did before LLMs and after LLMs, right? And the biggest thing I would say personally from my experience is if you've done an NLP project, right? Like even
Right.
2022 or like let's say a little before that, I would say um, hey, talk to me about, would you stick to your NLP approach or would you go for an LLM, right? And I think the people that really resonated with me were the people who said, "Oh, LLMs just knocked it out of the park. Like, we just switched and we decided it was better and we just gave up." But the people who like get defensive and like, "No, no, my model can do better," really do not account for, like, all of the things that happens to your model in the future, right? Because if you train your NLP model on a certain set of data, you have to retrain it, you have to manage it, you're giving a lot of
Right.
cost to your company. An LLM, at most the version changes, you can test it out with a new version, keep your old version stable, and then switch if you
Right.
feel like the results are still good, and you're done. So I would say biggest skill that you could have in this day and age, adaptability. If you can show me you're adaptable, I can trust that we can continue this transition into the new age together. So yeah, that would be
Okay.
it. But good question. Yeah.
But let's say we talk about technical capabilities now. So how would you define that for both of these candidates?
So for technical capabilities, right? Again, like the biggest differentiator very easily for me, if you can build stuff. If you can build stuff, you
Right.
know the tool. I don't need to know about your journey or I've done like a certification. Trust me, bro, I got this. That's not what I'm looking for, right? If you build something and you actually show me you can use it, that's enough. And we live in the world of LLMs, right? LLMs can teach you anything, right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's the most patient teacher. You can be like, it could be a struggle for you to understand things. It will patiently repeat it to you in three different forms, in three different accents, or even in the words of your favorite TV character if you want. So yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
so it's like I would mostly gauge people on their ability to build and their ability to maybe just as an example, I would say, hey, okay, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to give you a concept that you've never heard of. It doesn't have to be technical. It can
Right.
be anything. I'm going to give you a concept and say, okay, research with an LLM. Tell me, give me a presentation, right? Because
Right.
what is our value now? Everyone can do LLMs, but who can actually take those outputs, slice it up, give you the really the crux of it, the actually valuable parts of all of this information you've gathered. Someone who can
Right.
do that is like an essential non-technical skill that I would look at. Are you able to take all this information, condense, and really pick out what you need, and then give it to people? So I'll say,
I think with the current AI models, one thing that we still lack is interpretability of responses. And let's say they can give me the insight from numerical point of view, but they don't know how do we interpret this from business point of view. So, for example, I know that my mean is 73,
yeah.
but is this mean good or bad? How do we define that thing? So I think this is something. Do you think it is still missing from, or maybe we do not have any better solution these days that define these interpretability things?
No, I would say that, it's all about context, right? You have to, if you want, like the example I'm giving, right? Take this information and you give the really juicy parts of it. You
Right.
need to know like what is important for the problem, right? And for that, yeah, you need to have some basic statistics knowledge, because to actually be able to explain the numbers, you need to have like tool sets to like actually understand the mechanics of what's going on. So absolutely, that's definitely a must skill to have, because you can definitely work with an LLM to like you can say, "Hey, explain this mean to me," or explain this, covariance metric, or whatever it is. But
Right.
at the end of the day, you don't want to give a 10-page essay to the client, right? Like you got to give them
Yeah.
what they're looking for, right? And you won't have like unlimited time. And if you try to like just say, "Oh, well, I worked for 10 hours and I created this 40-page document that you will probably run through your LLM for an explanation," that's not going to cut it, right? Like you have to be able to not like need that step where you can say, like, "This is the analysis I've done just to get you on the same page. This is the crispest form I can give it to you," right? And having that statistical knowledge will just get you to that point faster, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone is working at the same level of quality now, right? The
Right.
skill of working with an LLM doesn't exist. All these prompt templates and frameworks and all that, I'm not gonna like say that they're not useful because I haven't like actively experimented with them and seen like is this better, is this better. I prefer just free form communication, right? And
Correct.
for me, I feel like if you are just even if you just practice for a few months, you'll get really good at getting the output you want from an LLM. And once everyone
Right.
reaches that same level of quality, right, in their work, speed becomes the next metric. Because one guy could do it in like 3 days, one guy could do it in 3 hours. Who are you gonna trust more, right? So yeah, and given all of this stuff, like the biggest thing we need to worry about is like the cognitive load, right? Because now we're processing information at a rate where our minds are literally not designed to, you know.
Yeah. So
So
maybe I'll come back to the question where you mentioned that someone has to build something in order to
yeah,
pitch it. Maybe they should have a working demo. But with LLMs, let's say I built a solution, a working prototype, but in a language that I do not understand. So for example, I know Python, but the solution is designed in TypeScript.
got it.
Now I have zero idea about TypeScript, but I built that end-to-end solution. I deployed it, and it is working now
Yeah,
without any working knowledge of TypeScript.
yeah.
What do you think of this case, and how would you judge that?
So another good question. That's really, really, great question. What I would say to that is, end of the day, you're accountable, right? Whether okay, so let's take the demo aspect out of it. Let's say that we're talking about like a real life scenario right now. Like let's say
Okay.
you've built a solution TypeScript because the client wanted it in TypeScript and JavaScript, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Now, end of the day, right? You have to own the solution, right? Um, and again, this is just a personal opinion, and there's going to be multiple differing schools of thoughts around this. So, I'm just going to let that, just keep that
Yep.
disclaimer open.
Yes.
There's two ways, right? So one way is you're proficient enough in TypeScript to at least like go through everything and understand the flow well enough, and from a general high level, like okay, I understand like what this application is doing. I understand most, if not all, the code. I have a generic understanding. That's good enough, right?
Right.
Like let's preface this with now you actually have TypeScript, like JavaScript knowledge, just to say, right? Like JavaScript now, okay, everything looks good, everything looks fine, and I'm good with this, right?
Right.
Do you have to be able to explain every single line of code? Not really. Because you can either do it through like logically going through all the code and making sure the tests and your outputs and everything are aligned, or you can actually
Right.
understand it like with your like actually with your knowledge of like JavaScript. Again, it's kind of one of those debates, right? Where I would say it's like if I'm driving a car, I need to have a driver's
Yeah.
license for sure. But do I need to know how
Yes.
like a combustion engine works? Do I need to understand like, okay, this is where the fuel goes in? Like, I mean, of course, I need to know where the fuel goes in, but do I need to know what happens once the fuel gets into the system, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like some people will argue that yes, you do. Some people will argue that I mean, you do have LLMs for that, right? That can help you explain what's going on and debug errors and do all that fun stuff. But then it all boils down to speed again, right? Like if I'm a Python expert and I build
Right.
something with Python, right? From an architecture level, I can look at it and I can be like, yeah, this is kind of what I was envisioning too. So I'm good. But I can always elevate the work, right? Because again, keep in mind, the common consensus is to take you to a mid level. It's not going to take you to an expert level. So if you're actually
Right.
at an expert level, you can elevate the code to that phase as well. So although it's not perfect, for the initial stages, like just kind of elevating that, the knowledge is good.
Okay.
So I think I'm kind of like going through both the points and not really making a stance. But I would say, in my opinion, yes, you should have some level of abstraction and knowledge around it, around like the
Mhm.
tools that you're working with.
Right.
I would argue it doesn't have to be as deep as it was before LLMs. Like before LLMs, you need to know like everything, right? Nowadays, I feel
Correct.
like that knowledge, even if it's high level, even if it's just like rough concepts, it's possible but not ideal. I would say you still need to know something. It's like I said, right? What does that new definition of having a driver's license mean, right? So
Yeah.
that's again
But
something we have to
then,
figure out.
let's say I am someone who's starting to build a project in Python, and let's say I'm a very novice in Python. I just started with Python,
Yeah,
but I built an end-to-end working prototype,
yeah,
and then someone asked me how does list work, for example,
yeah.
or how does any other library work, maybe how OOPS is implemented in Python. And now, as a fresher, if I implemented it using AI, I might not know the fundamentals. So, do you expect that guy to know the fundamentals and then develop this? Because since this is not something specific to language, but more to programming, right?
100%. I would say yes, they should know, like what, like at least basic stuff like that, right? Because again, like just because I know what a car is, I still need to get a driver's license to be able to drive it, right?
Yep.
So like I said, like I mean, if like I said, just personal opinion, right? If I am hiring for, let's say I own a company, I'm hiring someone.
Right.
If that situation comes to pass, my thought would be like, you know what? Hey man, I think you're good, but you're missing some really, really fundamental stuff. I really like the
Right.
energy. I like the thing. Here's what we're gonna do. I need you to like these questions that I've asked. I want you to prepare better, and I want you to actually learn these concepts. I'm going to give you 3 months. If you're still interested in working for me, come back to me in 3 months. Let's talk.
Right.
Right. That's my way. Right. Like I don't want to look, I don't want to make your life harder. I get it. You're struggling. You need the job like really bad. But at the end of the day, look, it's a collaboration, right? I'm
Right.
running a company. I'm not doing this out of charity, right? So it's a contract and agreement, and I won't able to like build you a good career if you don't give me the energy and skill sets. And you've already figured out the first half. I need you to figure out the second. You know?
But let's say someone who knows Python and built it in TypeScript, and he says that maybe I can use another AI tool to maybe do some user testing, some security testing of it. So now let's say he mentions about involving 2 to 3 new AI tools in order to do the testing and validation part, other than the building. Now in that case, how would you justify that? Because in this case, now he's able to build that, he's able to test that, and maybe deploy it better, still without any understanding of it.
Hire them in a heartbeat, right? Because they get it. Like they're reshaping the future, and that's exactly the kind of energy and skills that you need for your teams now. Because see, look, if you want like a living entity or an employee that follows instructions without question, you have LLMs now. So a
Yeah.
couple of good prompts, you can like create a virtual employee. So what you need right now is the thinkers, the creative folks, the ones who come up, who challenge kind of like the way we do things, right? Like who really are curious, like why are we doing this? Like when you
Right.
ask them like, okay, I want you to do this, and they're like, yeah, but why are we doing this? And that takes a lot of patience, right? Some people don't want that. They just want to like, hey, I'm giving you a task, just do it.
Yeah.
But like, if you're thinking about like, let's say, the way I'm envisioning in my head, if you're thinking about the future, right? What does an ideal employee look like in the age of generative AI? There are ones who are like, the game is changing, right? So when the game is changing, why would you not hire the game changers? Why would you hire people who would not question the literal system that we're building right now, right? So that's my
Right.
2 cents. That's what I would say.
But then let's say now a fresher watches this video and he comes up with, hey, these AI tools are costly and I cannot afford all of them. How do I start building? What would be your
I
response?
would call that out. I would say I would definitely call that out because hey, like ChatGPT, yes, it charges per token for API calls and stuff, but it's very, very manageable. You need to get
Okay.
creative, right? Like, hey, I don't have money. Like, go to Hugging Face. I'm pretty sure there's like many open source models, or you should be able to find something that you can at least stand up. And look, you don't
Right.
have to create like a working prototype that I don't need a live link like today, right? I mean, if you can just show me something where you've actually connected to an LLM once, you've done a few API calls, you understand the system, you can give me an opinion at the very minimum of this is how I feel it's done. And if I had more capital, this is how I would use it. Perfect, right? Because see, let's say I hire you, and then first question is like, okay, now you have the money, how will you use it, right?
Yeah.
So anticipate these things. And once you start anticipating the needs of your future employer, of your clients, of whoever you're working for, things will naturally start flowing, right? And people will just love working with you when it just naturally flows, because that's the best. If because then when you're that tuned into their needs, right? You kind of place yourself in a position where your problems are my problems, right? We're
Right.
in this together. This is not I work for you, you tell me what to do exactly, or else, I'm going to start malfunctioning. I'm thinking of this just as deeply, if not deeper than you are.
Right.
So yeah.
Maybe I'll come back to that enterprise question again.
Yeah, sure.
And where now imagine that we have built a solution,
Yeah.
we have delivered it to the client, and now we gave, maybe let's say we did some UAT, we deployed it on their servers. Now let's say you deployed an AI model or ML model to their system. Now when it comes to retraining of that model,
Yeah.
who handles that part and how do we do that? Generally when we deliver it in the enterprise, I mean, how do we handle these kind of scenarios?
Yeah, that's a very loaded question, and there is no simple answer, right? Because once you have your model in production, it is doing a lot of things, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, so I would say you shouldn't like really pin that responsibility on one person. It has to be a collaborative thing, right? Because you can't say, oh, well, it's on the data scientist. The data scientist might say,
Yeah.
okay, I need to change my model now, right? That's going to impact the business. That's going to impact, the cloud engineers. That's going to impact the UI folks potentially if there's new metrics that need to come up.
Right.
Like if there's new forms of data that have to go through, your API backend engineers have to like do a lot of stuff. So I would say like it has to be that's why, and this is why it takes so much time, right? To just gather the requirements, really, really think through the problem. This is the process, right? The more time you actually invest to nail down all the nitty-gritty details in the early stages, the smoother your journey is going to be, right? Because you would
Right.
potentially have thought about this, like, yeah, what are the solutions doing good, and we decide to do X, Y, and Z, right? Because if you're using an LLM, you're not suddenly going to use a predictive model in the middle of it, right? Like there would be a pretty good reason for that, and if there was, it should have happened in the requirements phase, right? would have happened in the start. So you already have a game plan for all of these phases. So the skill kind of becomes aligning all of these different entities, because everybody is like, look, everyone at the end of the day, we're all working professionals. We all want to,
Yep.
grow and work up the corporate ladder, do all this stuff. We all have our needs and our, our performance metrics, everything that we're being measured against.
Right.
Um, DevOps wants a stable system. Client wants better results. Data science wants to do cool data science stuff and stay relevant so that we can keep working on new things.
Right.
Data engineers, the pipelines can't are good, but now what? So aligning all of these different folks to the mission is the first thing, and then kind of defining okay, if we're going to do this, what is the benefit of it, right? Is it worth it? Because if I say, okay, we're going to do all of this work and it's going to be a 5% increment to your number of people viewing a solution, I don't think
Right.
that's worth it, right? Look, you have to do first of all, is it worth even improving it, right? And you have to do an assessment, and has to be in collaboration with the client. If the client wants it and they say, yeah, I appreciate your viewpoint on it, but I just want it, cool. I mean, hey, we're not going to say no to more work, but I mean, we will have to kind of be are you sure about this? Because at the end of the day, we believe that it will add this much amount of value or X amount of value. Are you sure that you're willing to invest in this? And if they say cool, then yeah, I think we're aligned. We just move forward. So
Right.
yeah, so once you have alignment, right, then just decide if the work is worth it, and then if it's worth it, start planning it out and doing it. If it's monumental, make sure it's going to give you a monumental return. So
Right.
yeah, I
I
would just.
think one takeaway that I'll have probably is define as specific as you can in the start itself
Right.
before even working with the product, because now with these LLMs development has become very easy, but maybe defining the problem and
Right.
defining the output is something that we generally need to spend more time on. Maybe I'll conclude this conversation with one very interesting question. I think in 2023, since LLM started, we were seeing a lot of RAG use cases.
Yeah.
In 2024, also, I think there were multiple new chatbots coming in. 2025, we had maybe new technologies like MCPs coming in, then new models coming in. There were very few consumer AI specific applications that came, maybe. What do you expect in 2026? What advancement do you see in 2026?
Honestly, I cannot really tell at this point of time, because when I started 2026, right, my first thought was, oh yeah, generative AI, is going to lose the hype pretty soon. But the level of engagement that I'm seeing from across the world, right, it's not just something that I saw in my job or talking to colleagues or talking to friends, but the level of impact that it's had, right?
Right.
Generative AI is here to stay. So I know it's going to be relevant. What way, shape, or form? I'm not even going to hazard a guess at this point, because I'm 90% sure it's going to be wrong, because we just
Right.
don't know how it's going to shape up. What I do know is that this is going to be an essential skill set, whether we want to use it or not. The
But
skill,
when you say essential skill set,
yeah,
do you mean using an LLM or building it?
both, both,
Both.
both.
Okay.
So yeah.
Maybe can you think of any one problem there from your entire maybe working experience that you have in last maybe 6 to 8 years? Any one enterprise level problem that you want to solve and it has not been solved yet?
Oh yeah. So I mean, this was stuff way back when I was an intern, right? There's so many
Okay.
solutions that I built when I was an intern. And there's this famous quote, I don't know, Iron Man, I think his dad is talking about. It's I'm severely limited by the technology of my time. As I was building it out way back when I was in the US when I was an intern, that's a real feeling. It's there's so many problems that, just looking at the kind of tool sets and skills that you have at that point. Because way back then, cloud wasn't even a thing. Cloud was
Right.
very, very compartmentalized. Only a very few experts had it. There was no UIs. It was all set up a server, use CLI. You want a documentation, here's a 50-page, 100-page documentation you can go through. The whole UIs and stuff, once that started coming up, then cloud adoption just soared, because now that you have a visual representation, easier to get a lot of people on board.
Right.
But for me, I would just go back to my intern use cases, and I would just rebuild everything, just start off. And there were so many problems, that I was tackling back then. They were decent solutions, but they were not quite there yet. There's certainly missing pieces, certainly things that could have been done better. With LLMs, goodness, if I had LLMs when I was an intern, I would have been a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would have been so much fun. Yeah.
What was your first job, by the way?
So my first job, I started off as a data analyst intern. So yeah, and I was like, I wasn't a great intern, I would say. I had very kind and understanding leaders who kind of shaped me in my early days into like kind of the man have become today, I would say, or at least have played a significant part. But yeah, I started off as intern, worked as intern for 6 months. Did the same thing, work up the corporate ladder, yada yada yada. Yeah, but I started off as intern.
Right. Which year was that? Is it 2018 or something?
2014. Yeah, it was about 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
Okay. I think you did masters later
Yeah,
on, right?
exactly. So I did my bachelor's and I did my master's, then got my first job as an intern. So yeah.
Right. This is something that we should have talked earlier, but we are doing it towards
No,
the end
that's
of the
okay.
conversation. But I think it was really nice having you in this conversation. Maybe I would love to have you in one of our next conversation where we talk about specific AI tools in future. But I think if I have to maybe conclude this call with one takeaway, that would be define problems better and have a clear goal in mind in terms of what output do you expect in next 6 months, 12 months. Plus, if you are interviewing in 2026, be ready with your projects. If you're a fresher, you should know, you should use LLM, but you should also be able to define fundamentals. If you're a working professional and you can use multiple LLMs for multiple purposes, irrespective of whether you know the language or not, that still works because you get the work done at the end.
Perfect. Yep. Two fundamental things. If that was also that's a perfect summary, but if you want to even get a more abbreviated version, build demos, define the problem, and you're good. Start from there.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining. I'll stop this recording now.
Yeah.